Catching your wife in the act with your boss at a company party. I always thought that only happened in movies or bad dreams. But believe it or not, that's exactly what happened to me. I went to that damn party, and from that night on, my life was split into before and after. What did I do, you ask? It was simple. I hit record before they even knew I was there. What followed was my revenge. Brutal? Yes, but they deserved every second of it. And the way I pulled it off? Masterful. I left them both with empty pockets and reputations in ruins. But exactly 1 year later, she showed up at my doorstep with a confession I never saw coming. My name's Ethan Keller. I'm 37, born and raised in Loveland, Ohio, right along the Little Miami River. My whole life, I figured happiness looked like a steady job, a house with a working furnace in the winter, and someone to come home to who looked at you like you mattered. 4 or 5 years of marriage. 8 years together if you count the dating. I thought I had exactly that with Marissa. She wasn't just my wife. Marissa had this presence, like she walked into a room and the air changed. She had chestnut brown hair, always twisted up neat like she was headed to a magazine shoot, and this way of listening that made people feel like their stories were the only ones that mattered. She grew up in Charleston, South Carolina. You could still hear a little of that lilt in her voice when she got tired. Moved to Cincinnati for college, University of Cincinnati, marketing degree. That's where we met, actually. I was managing a service team for a logistics company and gave a guest talk in one of her classes. Didn't think anything of it until she tracked me down on LinkedIn later. Said I made inventory optimization sound romantic. I laughed for a week about that. We got married in the fall. October, golden leaves, crisp breeze off the Ohio River. Her dress had these little embroidered leaves stitched into the bodice. Said it reminded her of her childhood hikes through the Congaree trails with her granddad. We did the whole deal at Eden Park overlooking the water. I drove her there in my old '98 Silverado that I'd cleaned inside out. Armor all and fresh pine air freshener, whole 9 yards. She thought that was the most romantic thing in the world. She worked in downtown Cincinnati at a high-end marketing agency off Walnut Street. Greystone and Partners. Lot of glass, espresso machines in the break rooms, dress codes that involved phrases like business couture. Marissa fit right in. She climbed fast, client manager in 2 years, senior strategist in 4. She had this way of speaking in rooms full of men in suits and making them nod along like they already agreed with her. I run logistics for a warehouse outfit over in Sharonville. Nothing glamorous, but honest work. Forklifts, shipping manifests, late deliveries from Kentucky that get blamed on weather when it's really just a guy named Joe who never checks his fuel gauge. But I liked it. Still do. It's a job where you finish your shift and feel like you did something that mattered, even if it's just getting pallets where they need to be. We settled in Westchester Township, north of the city. Bought a 3-bedroom ranch on a cul-de-sac with cracked sidewalks and kids' bikes in every driveway. Nothing fancy, but ours. The kind of place where neighbors wave when they mow their lawns. Marissa planted hydrangeas out front, blue ones, always her favorite. Said they reminded her of the coast. I liked waking up next to her, having coffee in mismatched mugs, listening to old Motown on Saturday mornings while she sorted laundry and hummed under her breath. It was good, or at least it looked good. We hosted cookouts in the summer, took weekend drives up to Hocking Hills, visited her folks in Charleston every Christmas. People said we were the kind of couple others wanted to be. Friends joked we were disgustingly in sync. Even our dog, Murphy, golden retriever with more energy than sense, seemed to know we were solid. He followed Marissa like a shadow. Then Derek's name started coming up. Derek Whitmore, her boss, head of strategic accounts. The kind of guy who wears cufflinks and has perfect stubble. Always flew in from New York in tailored suits and didn't drink domestic beer. Marissa talked about him a lot. Not in a way that screamed anything. Just, Derek liked this proposal, or Derek's flying us to Chicago for a pitch. That kind of thing. I'd hear his name at dinner, or when she was going through emails on the couch with her legs tucked under her. I didn't think anything of it at first. I mean, he was her boss. Just work stuff? She'd say, when I asked. He's intense, but smart. Pushes everyone hard. He's the reason I might make partner next year. And I believed her. Because that's what trust is, right? It's not just about believing someone won't lie. It's about assuming they don't have a reason to. We shared everything. Passwords, bank accounts, a beat-up Honda Civic we alternated for errands. I packed her lunch most mornings, turkey and cheddar, always with the crust cut off, just how she liked. So when Derek's name came up again and again, I didn't press. She was doing big things. She deserved a boss who recognized her talent. I even joked once, "You keep climbing the ladder, you're gonna forget all about your warehouse husband." She smiled and kissed my forehead. "Never," she said. "You're the one who keeps me grounded." That's what I held on to, sitting in that kitchen, watching her stir sugar into her tea, the late autumn light catching her wedding ring. We were perfect. Or at least, I thought we were. It was the second Friday of December when Marissa told me about the holiday party. "Company event," she said over breakfast, toast in hand. "Mandatory attendance, even for spouses." Derek's words, not mine. Now, I'm not much for glitzy parties. Give me a good burger and a cold beer on a patio somewhere, and I'm set. But I could tell this one mattered to her. It wasn't the first time Greystone and partners threw a holiday bash, but it was the first time she insisted I come along. Said Derek was really big on appearances this year, which I took to mean promotions were on the line. The invitation came in a thick cream-colored envelope with gold foil lettering, Greystone Annual Winter Gala. It was being held at the Hilton Netherland Plaza in downtown Cincinnati, fancy place, Art Deco everything. Marissa said the agency had booked the Hall of Mirrors ballroom, which I'd heard about but never stepped foot in. Swanky as hell. That night, I shaved close and dug out my charcoal gray suit from the back of the closet. Marissa wore a dark green velvet dress that hugged her figure just right. Her hair was done up in waves, and she wore that perfume I could always smell hours after she left her room. She looked like she belonged on the cover of one of those lifestyle magazines she used to read when we first started dating. We parked in the garage off Race Street and took the elevator up to the main lobby. The Hilton was buzzing with activity. Doormen in black coats, couples in evening wear, the sound of laughter and clinking glasses echoing from somewhere up high. When we reached the ballroom, it hit me like a ton of bricks, chandeliers glowing like golden suns, tables draped in white linen, a jazz trio playing near the back. Waitstaff moved through the crowd with trays of champagne and tiny hors d'oeuvres that looked too pretty to eat. Marissa slipped into host mode instantly. She floated from one group to another, hugging coworkers, exchanging inside jokes, saying things like, "Oh, you have to try the truffle risotto." I stood off to the side for a while, sipping a whiskey sour and watching her work the room. That's when I noticed it. Every few minutes, her eyes would flick toward the far corner of the room. She'd be mid-conversation, laughing at someone's story, and then, there it was. A glance, like a reflex. I followed her gaze and saw Derek standing near the bar, surrounded by two younger execs. He wore a navy blue suit, tie undone, drink in hand like he owned the whole damn place. Now, I'm not the jealous type. I've worked long enough in warehouse management to know how tight coworker bonds can get, especially under pressure. But this felt different. Like there was something electric passing in the air between them every time they made eye contact. I tried to shrug it off. We mingled. I met a woman named Claire who handled client analytics and told a long story about a presentation going off the rails thanks to a projector meltdown. I laughed politely, nodded along. Marissa disappeared for a few minutes here and there, always with a "be right back" and a peck on the cheek. I figured she was networking, maybe checking in with her assistant. But by the third time, the smile I kept glued to my face started to feel like it was cracking at the edges. Around 9:30, the jazz band took a break, and the lights dimmed slightly for the CEO's speech. I looked around, scanning the crowd, expecting Marissa to be back at my side. But she wasn't. Not at the bar. Not near the dessert tables. Not on the dance floor. I walked around for a bit, casual-like, pretending I was looking for the restroom. That's when I ran into Claire again. "Hey, Ethan," she said. "Marissa headed upstairs with Derek about 10 minutes ago. I think they had to take a call or something." It looked serious. I blinked at her. "Upstairs." "Yeah, toward the conference rooms. Maybe one of the side offices?" "Not sure." She smiled like it was nothing, like people ducking out of galas to take calls with their bosses was a regular occurrence. Something in my gut twisted. Not jealousy, not anger, just wrongness. Like the time I saw a forklift parked half on, half off a loading dock and knew instinctively something was about to go south. I didn't rush. I nodded at Claire, thanked her, and walked toward the hallway she'd pointed out. It was quieter back there, carpeted, dimly lit, with framed art from local photographers lining the walls. A bellhop passed me without a word, wheeling a cart of linens. The air smelled like pine cleaner and something faintly floral. I reached the top of a small staircase and stood still, listening. Nothing yet. But my gut? It wouldn't shut up. I stood there for a moment longer, frozen in place, my thoughts loud enough to drown out the hum of fluorescent lights. Marissa was somewhere beyond that hallway. I kept walking, past the staircase and down the hallway where the gala music faded into a dull throb. The carpet muffled my steps. I could hear the low hum of the building, air vents, distant elevators, the faint clang of cutlery echoing from downstairs. The upstairs floor was mostly dark. A security light blinked red above the emergency exit, casting a strobe pattern against the far wall. Every step I took sounded too loud in my own ears, my heartbeat thudding like a drum in my chest. This part of the Hilton was for business meetings, conference rooms, executive suites. I passed doors marked Jefferson, Roebling, and Taft, all closed. No voices, no signs of anyone. And then, faintly, from further down the corridor, I heard it. Laughter. Not loud, muted, hushed, like two people trying to keep things private and failing. I moved toward it without thinking. The hallway curved slightly and widened, revealing a set of double doors with smoked glass panels. A brushed metal plaque beside them read, Executive Access, Greystone and Partners. Her company had booked private office space up here for the night. Of course they had. I didn't knock. I stepped forward and tried the door. Locked. But a few feet down, there was another door. Wood, dark-stained, no nameplate, just a narrow vertical window with the blinds mostly drawn. Light leaked out in slits through the slats, thin and golden. I stepped closer and froze. Voices. Whispering. A rustle. Then a soft sound I couldn't quite place at first. Rhythmic. Repeating. I put my hand on the door. And then I heard it. My wife. Her voice, not words exactly, more like a muffled sound of someone lost in something they shouldn't be. It wasn't pain. It wasn't surprise. It was, God help me, it was familiarity. Comfort. Like she'd been there before. My stomach turned. My throat dried out so fast I couldn't swallow. The hallway seemed to shift under my feet like I was standing on the deck of a rocking boat. I stared at the nameplate now visible on the corner of the door. Derek Whitmore, Senior Accounts Director. Of course it was. I backed up one step, not out of fear, but calculation. My phone was in my jacket pocket, just under the lapel. I took it out and checked the battery, 73%. Good enough. I swiped to camera mode and switched it to video. My hands shook, but I held steady. Then I pushed the door open. Slowly. Carefully. It wasn't locked. The room was softly lit. A tall arc lamp stood in the corner, casting a pool of amber light over the far side of the office. There was a gray sectional couch near the window, and a polished walnut desk against the back wall. The windows looked out over the city skyline, blinds halfway drawn. I registered all of that in an instant, but my eyes locked on what was directly in front of me. Marissa was on Derek's desk, her dress disheveled, hair loose and tangled. She looked caught up in the moment, unaware of anything else. Derek stood close behind her, shirt discarded, both of them oblivious to the door I had just opened. I stood there, just inside the doorway, phone steady in my hand, recording. It felt surreal, like I'd stepped into someone else's life. I didn't feel rage, not yet. Just something heavier, like a thick, wet coat settling over my shoulders. The sound in my ears was muted, except for one constant, the pounding of my own pulse. Then Derek turned his head. He saw me. His mouth opened, but he didn't speak right away. He froze like a deer in headlights. Marissa didn't even realize yet. Her eyes were closed. Then she heard the change in his breathing. She looked over her shoulder and saw me. Time stopped. The look on her face, shock, then confusion, then horror, hit harder than any punch I'd ever taken in my life. She scrambled off the desk, pulling her dress down, stumbling backward like she'd been hit by lightning. Derek grabbed for his shirt but didn't say a word. I didn't move. I didn't yell. I didn't throw a punch or demand answers. I just kept the camera pointed. Silent. Steady. Ethan. Marissa's voice cracked. This isn't. I didn't mean. I didn't say a thing. Just stood there, recording. Letting it all burn into the memory card like fire etching into steel. She reached toward me, tears already forming. Derek finally muttered something, but I didn't catch it. I didn't care. The moment was seared into my brain forever. I stopped the recording, slipped the phone back into my pocket, and turned around. I walked out of the office, down the hallway, and back toward the stairs. I could hear her calling my name, but I didn't stop. I didn't run, either. Just walked, every step slow and heavy like I was dragging 100 pounds behind me. Down the stairs, through the lobby, past the glittering ballroom and the laughing partygoers who had no idea what just shattered upstairs, out into the cold Cincinnati night. And I kept walking. I didn't sleep that night. I don't remember much about the drive home. I know I walked 3 blocks in the cold to the garage on 7th Street, where we'd parked the Civic. The streets were half-iced, slush crusting around the tires of cars parked under street lamps. A Reds cap lay frozen in a puddle near the curb, like someone lost it weeks ago and never looked back. Downtown Cincinnati was still alive, people spilling out of bars, laughter echoing between brick buildings, but it all felt 1,000 miles away. I drove with both windows cracked, not because I needed air, but because the silence in that car was screaming. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't think. Just let the cold air slap my face and the white lines on the road blur under the headlights. I kept seeing her face in flashes. Not the one from our wedding, or those vacation photos from Asheville, or her leaning over the stove on Sunday mornings. Just that look, wide-eyed, mascara streaking, scrambling to cover herself while Derek tried to zip up and hide behind words. I didn't even know if she went back to the party. At home, I turned off all the lights, sat down in the kitchen, and placed my phone on the table like it was a live grenade. Murphy padded in from the hallway, tail wagging half-heartedly, then settled next to me. He always knew when something was wrong. I poured a glass of water but didn't drink it. Just stared at it. It wasn't until almost 2 in the morning that I picked up the phone. I rewatched the video. Once. No more. I wanted to be sure. Needed to see clearly, without the haze of adrenaline and disbelief. It was all there. The office, the lighting, her dress, his watch, the desk, the look on her face when she saw me. It wasn't open for interpretation. It wasn't something she could talk her way out of. I backed it up immediately, uploaded it to a private drive under a new account with a name nobody could trace back to me. Then I opened my laptop. I typed out the email carefully. No threats. No emotions. Just facts. I addressed it to Greystone and Partners Human Resources Director. The info was easy to find. Their leadership team was listed publicly on the company's site. The woman's name was Karen D. Pollock, VP of People and Culture, whatever that meant. I'd never met her, but I figured she dealt with worse things than this. Or maybe not. I wrote, "This is a formal complaint regarding a breach of Greystone and Partners Code of Conduct and Workplace Relationship Policies. I'm submitting this anonymously due to concerns about retaliation." Attached is a video recorded on December 9th, 11:02 p.m., inside a Greystone executive office at the Hilton Netherland Plaza. The individuals involved are Derek Whitmore, Senior Accounts Director, and Marissa Keller, Client Strategy Lead. This incident occurred during the company's winter gala. Further investigation into employee relationships and the use of company resources is strongly advised. I attached the video file, checked the formatting, and reread the message 3 times. Then I hit send. My hand hovered over the keyboard for a while afterward. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel anything. Just a strange numbness, like my brain had unplugged itself to protect the rest of me. I didn't go upstairs. I sat in the living room, lights off, and waited. Around 3:15 a.m., I heard her key in the door. Marissa walked in like a ghost. Her hair was a mess. She was still in that velvet dress. No coat. Her shoes were in her hand. She looked like she'd been crying for hours. "Ethan," she whispered. I didn't move. Didn't speak. I just looked at her. She crossed the room, knelt by my feet. Her hands trembled as she reached for mine. "I made a mistake," she said. "It wasn't planned. It wasn't what it looked like." I looked down at her. Said nothing. She kept going. "I didn't want to hurt you. Everything got complicated. Derek, he's been pressuring me, and I thought if I played along, it would help me make partner. It was stupid. It's over now. It's never happening again, I swear." Her voice cracked. She covered her face with her hands. Her body shook as she sobbed into the rug. Still, I said nothing. Because what do you say when your whole marriage turns into a boardroom deal with a man you never trusted? Derek. Mr. Open Collar Confidence. Mr. I just push my team to be great. She chose him, even if just for a moment. I let her cry until she wore herself out. She eventually crawled up onto the couch next to Murphy and fell asleep in a wrinkled dress. I stood up, walked to the guest room, and shut the door behind me. The next morning, I got up early and drove to my buddy Carl's place in Fairfield. Told him I needed to crash for a while. No questions asked. Later that day, I checked the burner email. One new message. Not a reply, but an auto response. "Thank you for your submission." Your report has been received and will be reviewed by the Office of Conduct and Ethics. Please do not reply to this message. That was it. The first domino had fallen, and everything else was about to come down. I've always been a planner. It's the logistics brain in me, organizing, anticipating, tracking systems before they break. And now, I was looking at a marriage like a business with one busted foundation. So I did what any operations manager would do with a failing asset. I started pulling plugs. First thing the next morning, while Marissa was still curled up on the couch with Murphy like her world hadn't imploded, I got in the Civic and drove to the PNC branch on Tylersville Road. Still had the frost on the windows. I parked next to a white Tahoe with a "My Kid's an Honor Student" sticker and walked in wearing jeans and an old Carhartt jacket. The same bank manager who helped us refinance the mortgage last year gave me a nod. "Morning, Ethan," she said. "Something we can help with?" "Yeah," I said. "I need to withdraw all the funds from our joint savings and close the account. Transfer the funds to my private checking." She blinked. "All of it. Every cent." She asked a couple of polite questions, protocol stuff. I gave short answers. I signed the forms. And just like that, the $42,716.32 we'd saved over 8 years, vacation money, house repairs, emergency fund, was out of reach for her. Next stop was Huntington Bank, where we had 2 shared credit cards, one for household expenses and one for travel. I'd been paying those bills for years, her groceries, my gas, hotel rooms we barely used since COVID. I canceled both cards, effective immediately. Asked them to issue new cards in my name only. After that, I drove over to a small financial firm near Tri-County Mall where we had a brokerage account. It wasn't much, some stocks we bought after a windfall tax refund, a CD maturing next spring, but I froze it. Locked it down. No trades, no withdrawals, no funny business. By 11:30 a.m., I was sitting in a Wendy's off Route 4 with a junior bacon cheeseburger and a chocolate frosty, looking out the window at nothing. The sky was gray. The kind of December gray that stretches flat over Ohio and makes you feel like you're living under a concrete dome. I didn't have an appetite, but I needed the normalcy. Something solid. Something that didn't lie to my face. I pulled out my phone and made a few more calls. Canceled the joint subscription to Netflix and Hulu. Changed the passwords on the Amazon account. Removed her from my car insurance policy. Hell, I even logged into the Kroger Rewards app and wiped her email from the family list. Petty? Maybe. But I wasn't about to keep collecting fuel points with a woman who'd traded our future for a few hours in a hotel office. I wasn't angry in the traditional sense. There was no fire. No yelling. Just this cold, surgical need to protect what was left of my life before it got gutted. I knew what was coming. Marissa would beg. She'd say it was a mistake. She'd try to apologize 100 different ways with words polished like a campaign speech. But I'd seen the truth. And no amount of mascara or clean laundry or candlelit dinners was going to put the toothpaste back in the tube. Back home that afternoon, I found her sitting on the edge of the bed, still in pajamas, staring at a cup of tea that had long gone cold. "I didn't take anything from the account," she said quietly, as if I hadn't already logged every move. "I saw the email." I nodded. Didn't say a word. "I get it," she added. "You're scared. You want control. But we can fix this, Ethan." I looked at her. Really looked. "I'm not scared," I said. "I'm done." Then I walked into the garage, shut the door behind me, and started cleaning my old fishing gear like it was any other Sunday. That night, I went through the filing cabinet in the guest room and pulled every document I'd need. Marriage license, tax returns, house deed, pay stubs, joint titles. I laid them out in neat stacks across the dining table. Took photos of each with my phone. Labeled folders. Saved everything twice. I wasn't rushing. I was preparing. Like boarding up windows before a storm, not because you're afraid of the wind, but because you know what it can do to a house that isn't ready. Marissa didn't say much that evening. We moved through the house like strangers wearing masks that used to fit better. She offered to make dinner. I declined. She asked if I wanted to talk. I didn't. And when she finally went upstairs, I stayed behind, sitting in the same chair I'd sat in when I first told her I loved her. Back when we were still living in that apartment in Norwood, eating spaghetti off paper plates and watching reruns of Frasier. I sat there and listened to the wind pick up outside. December wind, the kind that whistles through the cracks and lets you know exactly where your insulation's thin. I made a promise to myself. Tomorrow, I'd make the call. Not to her parents. Not to a therapist. To a lawyer. The waiting was the hardest part. 2 weeks can feel like a year when you're sitting on a time bomb that already exploded. Every morning, I'd wake up half expecting to see headlines on the business page or a message from someone on the inside. But the email stayed quiet, and Marissa, somehow, kept getting dressed for work like she wasn't walking into a collapsing building. The first Monday after the party, she wore a navy blazer I hadn't seen in months. She even put on mascara. Said she had a big pitch. I just nodded, pouring coffee like this was any other week. Murphy watched her from the kitchen doorway like he was trying to figure out who she was. She left at 7:45 sharp, just like always. But everything was already in motion. See, corporate HR departments don't move fast, but when they do move, it's with steel toes and no warning. I'd done my part. I'd sent the evidence, written the report, and made sure everything was backed up 6 ways to Sunday. The email I got from their auto-response system was short and cold. Just said the complaint was under review and not to expect further communication unless necessary. That suited me just fine. While I waited, I went back to work. I kept my head down at the warehouse in Sharonville, running logistics like nothing had changed. My guys, Marcus, Joe, and Steve, noticed something was off, but they didn't press. I think they thought I was fighting with Marissa over holiday plans. If only it were that simple. 10 days in, I got a message on my burner account. Please confirm the original footage file is still in your possession. That was all it said. No name, no signature, but it meant they were serious. I replied with a simple confirmed. Timestamp intact. 3 days after that, it hit. I was home early on a Friday. The warehouse had a water line burst, so we shut down for the day. I was in the garage organizing my tackle box when I heard her Civic pull into the driveway, early for her, too. I wiped my hands on a rag, expecting the usual quiet tension. Instead, the front door slammed. Hard. I walked inside and found her standing in the hallway, coat still on, purse dangling from one hand like it weighed 100 pounds. Her face was pale, eyes red. She looked like she'd been hit by a freight train. They fired me, she said. I didn't blink. She dropped the purse. It hit the floor with a thud. Effective immediately. No severance. No warning. Just a box of my stuff waiting by the receptionist's desk when I got back from lunch. I said nothing. Just stood there in the living room, watching her. It was all in the report, she went on, voice cracking. The email, the video, even the security footage from the hallway. They checked building logs, badge entries, everything. They said it violated company policy, inappropriate conduct in a corporate setting. Derek's out too. I finally spoke. When? This morning. HR pulled us into separate meetings. They didn't even look me in the eye. Good. I thought. That was the first thing that felt truly fair in this whole mess. They said I'd compromised professional integrity, she whispered. I've been there 6 years, Ethan. 6 years. I worked every weekend. Traveled nonstop. I turned down promotions at other agencies just to stay loyal. I stared at her. Loyal. The word hit me like a bad joke. And Derek? I asked, folding my arms. Gone, she said. His office is empty. They wiped his name from the team directory. Clients were notified this morning. They're calling it a restructure. She sank into the chair across from the fireplace, the same chair she used to read in while I grilled steaks on Saturdays. I didn't think it would go this far, she said, voice barely audible. I thought maybe a warning. Or, I don't know. That's the thing about consequences, I said. They don't ask what you thought. She didn't respond. That night, she didn't eat. Just sat at the dining table staring at nothing, the way someone might look out over a lake that used to be their backyard until it dried up. Her phone buzzed once, probably Derek, or to someone else from the agency, but she ignored it. She finally went upstairs around 11:30. Said nothing. Took the steps like her legs were made of concrete. I heard the door click shut. I stayed on the couch. My phone buzzed a little after midnight, another burner alert from a second account I'd made, just in case. It was a forwarded message, probably leaked. Whitmore and Keller both terminated. Internal ethics report attached. Legal has advised silence until further notice. No headlines. No press releases. Just quiet erasure. By Monday, their names were gone from Greystone's website. Her LinkedIn was wiped clean. Derek's profile disappeared entirely. It was like neither of them had ever worked there. Just vapor. Marissa didn't leave the house for 2 days after that. Not even to check the mail. And every time I passed her in the hallway, she looked at me like a ghost, like she was still trying to figure out how a life she built in heels and boardrooms could collapse in a single week. The divorce was finalized on a rainy Thursday in April. We signed papers at a small law office in Mason, Ohio. Neutral ground. No yelling, no drama, just a pen and a stack of forms thicker than our wedding album. The lawyer, some gray-bearded guy named Feldman who wore Argyle socks and didn't say much, shuffled through each section while we nodded along. Marissa barely looked up. Her eyes were glassy, but she kept her voice level, like she was trying to be professional. I didn't say much either. We were past apologies and explanations. Past regret, even. We were just two people dividing what used to be one life. When it was over, we shook hands. That was the last time I touched her. I went back to my place, a small, two-bedroom rental over in Monroe, right off Yankee Road. Nothing fancy, but it had a fenced yard for Murphy and a decent view of the woods behind the property. I moved in a week after I left the house we'd bought together, and it felt like hitting reset. No framed wedding pictures. No shared Netflix account. Just clean walls and a bed I picked out by myself. I kept the name Keller, obviously. She kept Shiroi. She was proud of that name. Always said it made her sound like a brand. Back when she was climbing the ladder at Greystone, she used to say things like, "The Shiroi name is going to be on the lips of every big client from here to Chicago." But post-divorce, the Shiroi name didn't carry much weight anymore. Derek tried to bring her into some boutique agency over in Blue Ash. Something sleek and rebranded, with open floor plans and kombucha on tap. It lasted about a month. Word had already spread, quietly, through marketing circles, boardrooms, vendor calls. People knew. It wasn't the affair that burned them. It was the unprofessionalism, the risk, the headlines they all silently feared. Clients dropped. Accounts froze. Derek was asked to step aside. Marissa's name disappeared from the staff page faster than you could refresh the website. They say Cincinnati's a small town in a big coat, and boy, did it prove true. Every door she knocked on looked familiar, and every one closed before she could step through. She tried freelancing for a while, copywriting gigs, branding consultations, but it never clicked. Her email signature shrank over time. First the bold font disappeared, then the titles. Eventually, it was just M. Shiroi, with no company listed. Last I heard, she was working part-time at a small design firm on the Kentucky side, in Covington, running social media accounts for restaurants and auto shops. Derek, I imagine, moved to Chicago. Probably thought the city was big enough to swallow his reputation. But word travels faster than flights these days. And he never got traction again, not the kind he had back at Greystone. I heard from someone at a conference that he's doing B2B sales for a startup now. Something in cloud storage. He's still wearing cufflinks, but nobody's clapping anymore. As for me, I rebuilt. Quietly. Slowly. I didn't date for a long time. People at work asked. My buddy Carl tried setting me up with his sister's friend who ran a dog grooming service in Lebanon. I passed. Not because she wasn't nice. I just wasn't ready to share silence with someone else yet. Instead, I got into routines. I fixed up a '97 Jeep Wrangler that sat rusting in Carl's barn for 5 years. Took Murphy on long hikes through Miami Whitewater Forest. Started cooking meals again. Not frozen pizza or gas station sandwiches, but real stuff. Learned how to make my mom's chili from scratch, the kind she used to serve every Super Bowl Sunday back, when we still had a full house and not just broken memories. I started journaling too. Not every day, but often enough. Writing helped. Got thoughts out of my head before they festered. Some pages were just one sentence. She looked me in the eye and lied. Others were paragraphs about rain and silence, and what forgiveness feels like when it's not given, just quietly understood. Work stayed steady. Promotions didn't matter much after what I'd been through, but I put in the hours, mentored the younger guys, made sure every shipment left on time. My supervisor, Rick, called me the quiet engine in a meeting once. Said I kept everything moving even when the road was bumpy. I appreciated that. I stopped checking Marissa's socials around month 4. Stopped asking mutual friends how she was doing. I didn't hate her. I just didn't need to wait anymore. It was early December again, 1 year to the day since that Christmas party at the Hilton Netherland Plaza. The weather hadn't changed much, gray skies, bare trees, wind cutting sharp through the streets of Monroe. I'd just come back from running errands in town, picked up some rock salt from Lowe's, filled up at the Speedway off Main, grabbed a bag of dog food from Murphy at Tractor Supply. I was in the middle of setting up the porch lights, the same old red and green strands I'd used every year since 2016, when I heard a knock. Not a quick knock. A soft, hesitant one. 3 little raps, spaced out like whoever was on the other side wasn't sure they had the right place. Murphy lifted his head from the couch and let out a low whine, then padded to the door. I followed behind him, wiping my hands on a towel, and opened it. And there she was. Marissa. She looked nothing like the woman I used to know. Her hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail, frizz curling around her temples. No makeup. Just the tired lines of someone who'd been carrying too much for too long. She wore an old coat I recognized from our college years, a faded peacoat with a missing button, and her hands trembled as she clutched the strap of a canvas tote slung over her shoulder. Her eyes were glassy, red-rimmed, not from the wind. "Hi," she said. I didn't say anything at first. Just held the door, heart slowing to a heavy thump. I didn't know if you'd still be here," she added, voice shaking. I nodded once. "Still here." She bit her lip and took a small step forward, then stopped. "I know I don't have any right," she said, looking down at the porch boards. "But I couldn't go another day without trying. Just once." She looked up, eyes searching. "I miss you, Ethan," she said, barely above a whisper. "I miss the mornings. Your coffee. The way you always left the porch light on when I worked late. I miss Murphy jumping on the bed. I miss the way you laughed when something wasn't funny just because I laughed first." She let out a breath that turned to fog in the cold air. "I'm not asking for a reset," she continued. "I know I burned everything. I know that. I've been paying for it every day. Every time I walk into work and get handed a list of hashtags for tire shops in Kentucky, I think about what I gave up, what I threw away." Murphy let out a soft sound beside me. I scratched behind his ear, still silent. "I don't expect forgiveness," she added. "But I had to say it. That I'm sorry. I am so sorry." There it was. The apology. The one I used to fantasize about during those nights lying alone in the dark, when I still imagined we might find our way back through the mess. But I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel angry. I just felt tired. "I hear you," I said, finally. She looked at me, hope flickering in her eyes. "But that door closed a long time ago," I added. I looked her in the eye, steady and calm. "I'm not angry anymore," I said. "I'm not hurting, either. But I've moved on. Quietly. I have peace now. And I can't open the door to anything that might take that from me." She nodded, slow, like she was bracing for the cold that came next. "I understand," she said, wiping her nose with her sleeve. And I believed she did. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't invite her in. I just stepped back gently, and before she could say another word, I closed the door. Not with anger, just with finality. Behind it, the heater hummed. The lights I'd strung blinked softly in red and green. Murphy settled back by the window with a quiet sigh. I walked into the kitchen, poured a mug of coffee from the pot I'd made earlier, and sat at the table looking out at the yard. The maple tree out back was bare now, its limbs thin and still. I thought about the life we had. The 8 years of memories, road trips, holidays, lazy Sundays. I thought about Charleston, our first apartment in Norwood, the way she used to hum when folding laundry. And then I let it go, because I wasn't holding on anymore. I didn't miss her. Not the woman standing on my porch, and not the one I used to love. What I missed, maybe, was the man I used to be before I saw behind the curtain. But even that had faded. I was someone else now. Someone who knew that peace isn't found in the return of what's broken, but in the quiet you make after the storm's passed, when you realize you're still standing, still breathing, still whole. And the doors stayed closed. Share your thoughts in the comments. If you were in Ethan's shoes, would you have sent the footage to HR? If you liked the story, subscribe to the channel and give us a like.